Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, Zeno FM, and of course our good friends at Simul Radio and Simul TV. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And for all the programming that we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. Exonation, my first guest tonight is Jfk Harman. And Jeff has been an astrologer for 4 decades, utilizing a variety of systems, including traditional or classical Western astrology, Vedic astrology, Kabbalistic astrology, and astrolocation astrology. Jeff spent 10 years in Beverly Hills and has a remarkable client base and data bank of thousands of case studies. He is currently located in West Hills, California, and he's spoken for IONS, MUFON, the Joshua Tree Retreat Center, and the Association of Celebrity Personal Assistants, and much more. Joining me now from sunny California, where there is no snow, lucky guy, is Jeff Harman. And Jeff, welcome back to the X Zone.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
There's
no sun either today. It's rainy.
Well, you know what? I would rather have rain than snow anytime, my friend.
Yeah. Well, it's winter, right?
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Jeff, how did you get started in astrology? Like, you've had a career that has, spanned the entertainment industry, and here you are today, one of the top recognized astrologers of all time.
Well, thanks for saying that. I just try and help people. Mm-hmm. I never went into it for any recognition, that's for sure. How I originally got into it was my mother. And I was a skeptic of astrology. And you're going to find this hard to believe. I'm always kind of maintaining that viewpoint of not so much skepticism, but kind of an aloof objectivity. And the reason is I view it more as astronomy, like the ancient astrologers did, than like modern astrologers do in terms of astrology.
Okay.
Because that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got into it, was in the mid-'70s. My mother was telling me about certain girlfriends, and I said, come on. I said, this is a little beyond mother's intuition. What are you doing here? And she said astrology. And I said, come on, that stuff doesn't work. And she said, well, before you debunk it, why don't you just check it out? And I did. And to my amazement, there was quite a bit of accuracy, I'll say that.
So mother knows best.
Well, she did in that case, I can tell you that. Yeah, she was pretty good, too.
How many different types of astrology are there, Jeff?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, when you look, especially what's been layered on in the last century, there's a lot of different viewpoints. And especially in the modern world, with the innovation of computers in the late 70s, early 80s, there's been a lot of new techniques. And I studied, I wouldn't say all of them for sure, but a good portion of them, I'll say that. And I gravitated back towards the really ancient stuff, the Vedic astrology, and also I really resonated with some of the ancient stuff coming up out of Chaldea, Egypt, Greece, and into the Middle Ages.
How does astrology work? Like, when we look back in time, how is it that the ancients had so much knowledge of the stars, the universes, the different signs, when they didn't have the equipment that we have today in order to come up with the solutions or the conclusions or the facts that they did?
That's an intelligent question, and I've asked that myself a lot. I can tell you this. The Royal Observatory in England actually did a study. They went back and said, okay, we have all this modern technology, the Hubble Space Telescope, and all these GPS things that we can now do with technology. Let's see how accurate the ancients were. And they checked out something called a panchanga, which is what India calls their ephemeris. And an ephemeris in the West is where the positions of the heavens are. And to their amazement, they found that many of these ancient documents were within 30 minutes of arc of accuracy. So, you're bringing up a broad question I can't answer in one sentence, but I'll tell you this. I find the farther back we go, there's strong evidence that this was communicated either by angels or, I would say, angelic beings, or if you want to go into aliens, it's possible. It's far too advanced. In the Vedic stuff, they actually knew that our solar system went around the central sun just short of 26,000 years. They were very accurate on that. NASA and many other space agencies have absolutely corroborated that. In fact, they say our solar system's doing almost 500 million miles an hour around that central sun. And then they knew there was a 250-year galactic cycle approximately, all of which is being corroborated by science. I think the last thing I'd say is CERN, which I'm sure you've heard of, right?
Sure.
Splitting the atoms. They just did a study on dark matter that astoundingly proved astrology. And one of the things that they found, and of course we've been hearing this for quite a while now, that 90% of all matter in the universe may be dark matter. That's the space in between the atoms and molecules and neutrinos and all that. And they're finding overwhelming evidence through tests in CERN of the astrological alignments. So Carl Sagan, when he said there's less gravity affecting me from Saturn than the doctor in the room, was probably right if you use gravity.
Yeah. Is it possible, now you mentioned angels and extraterrestrials, is it possible that angels and ETs are one and the same? It's a matter of time when the sighting is done compared to the actuality of the sighting. For example, in olden days, I would imagine, consider someone who descended, like the Nephilim did in the Bible, from the skies as to be angels, whereas today the same sighting would be interpreted as an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, that's deep stuff there, and I don't think there's any simple way. It's all speculation. But I can tell you that in the Upanishads in India, there are specific mentions to the rishis, who were the seers, and much of the stuff communicated was about not just celestial things. And that's what really attracted me to the ancient systems was modern astrology tends to say, oh, you're a Libra or a Pisces and all this sun sign stuff. Yeah. Well, the ancients never said that. They said, no, you were a spiritual being having a physical experience. And where the rabbit really goes down the hole is when you start looking even just at our Western biblical materials. For instance, the Bible as we know it was translated, of course, the most popular one is the King James Version. But if you go back farther, the Old Testament was known as the Torah. Right. And there were many documents omitted. And there are 72 angels that actually rule in the firmament. In the West, we call them ministering angels. And in the East, they call them lords of destiny and all kinds of other names. So this stuff gets really complex and really deep. But what's fascinating is I actually have data here. You can calculate the name of your guardian angel from your birth chart. Wow. Yeah. And this is where trying to get a clear-cut division between angels, aliens, spirits, elementals, and all these other things, it's almost daunting beyond human comprehension. There's hierarchies and hierarchies and hierarchies in these different dimensions of angelic beings that are clearly identified. And there's cryptology that you can't get out of English. I only know how to do it out of Aramaic or Hebrew. And it's also believed you can do it out of Sanskrit.
Interesting stuff. Jeff, please stand by. You and I have to take our first break. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about Jeff Harman or if you'd like to contact him for a one-on-one private consultation, his website is www.jeffharman.com. That's JEFFHARMAN.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget the X Zone TV show on every Tuesday night from 9:30 until 10:30 on Cable 14 here in the Hamilton area. Don't go away.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Jeff Harman is my special guest. Exonation, www.jeffharman.com is his website. And Jeff, before we get back to the astrology, as I was going through your bio, I came across something that I find very interesting. That you worked in films, you worked in sound labs, but you also were called in as an analyst on the Jfk Assassination Footage. What was your opinion?
Well, that never went very far. I used to do forensics work in audio, acoustical analysis, as well as tapes, back in the days when we actually had analog tape. Today it's all zeros and ones. But I would be hired to do analyzing of whether verbatim transcripts were stopped and go into courtrooms and do voice print analysis. And this attorney approached me to do an analysis where we had the visual shooting of JFK, but then he had all these tapes, because you got to remember back in 1963 when JFK was killed, you didn't have cameras that recorded the audio together. You had a sound guy that synced that with the film camera. So he had acquired a great number of these tapes from different cameramen who had their positions pretty much marked out as to where the news media was posted. And, whenever you have the president, that's very sectioned off, even back in the 60s. And he was trying to prove by the acoustics, because sound travels at a certain speed at certain temperatures, whether there were different locations of the guns. Well, I never got into doing it because the project was terminated mysteriously right before we really got analyzing any direct data on it. And I thought that was kind of strange because he was so adamant about doing the work and so excited that he had acquired all this stuff, and then it mysteriously dried up. And my personal opinion is somebody basically told him to back off.
Unreal. Now, you've also worked with George Carlin. You did something with Mother Teresa. And my gosh, Greg Morris.
Yeah. George Carlin and Mother Teresa, even though they're completely different, are actually a lot alike.
Really?
They both disdained the irony of human ego, but one did it through, trying to help, and the other one did it through humor.
Yeah.
which I think they're a lot alike in some ways.
Now, we mentioned President Kennedy, and this is a nice segue into my next line of questioning, is about our current president. Of course, I'm talking about Donald J. Trump. Have you done any astrological examination of the president's chart?
I have, and I have to say, I was on a radio show in 2015 when he made his announcement, or whenever that was, 2015 or 2016, and the commentator almost hung up the phone on me when I said Donald Trump is likely to win. And that was before he won the primary.
Right.
And one of the reasons I felt that, and still maintain why he got in is because in Egyptian astrology, they use something called primary directions. And to the credit of the math techniques of the Egyptians, they would literally take the latitude you were born at and process the rotational rate of the Earth at that latitude, which varies depending on how far north or south you are, and extrapolate that to be a day equals a year of ascensional rate. Well, doing that with Donald Trump's chart, he had for the first time in his life the primary directed sun crossing the ascendant. Modern astrologers might say his ascendant was actually conjuncting his sun. But either way, that's why I knew he'd have the presidency. And his Vedic chart fits him to the T. And he's got a lot of stuff going on right now that's very challenging, as you would expect.
He doesn't back down from very much.
He's a warrior.
Yeah.
The guy has something called... Well, I'll put it in plain English. He has an extremely powerful Mars. In Vedic astrology, they call that a Raj Yoga, which means kingly union. He's got Mars ruling an angle in his chart, which is sunrise, noon, or sunset, and one of the trines. So plain English, he's a lot like a general, but more of a refined one.
So in your opinion, based on your expertise as an astrologer, what might this year bring for President Trump?
He's got a really tough year, and it's been tough for a while for him because he's got something known as the secondary progressed moon conjuncting Mars, and it does it right April 5th this year. And look at what just happened. You have Cohen in there stirring up everything. You've got the now Democratic House. They're going to bludgeon him as much as they can with as many investigations as they can. Will it stick? Will it go anywhere? They're sure going to make a try, but the chart leans towards it kind of just smacks into the wall and runs down the wall. I don't think they're going to get the traction they want to get.
Just as we're seeing with Special Counsel Mueller and his Russia probe, smacking into a wall, going nowhere.
It leans in that direction.
Yeah.
Trump comes out of a 28-year cycle, and everybody gets these, by the way. It doesn't matter if you're President Trump or you're washing dishes at the sink or you're the CEO of a company. He has a secondary progressed moon in a very unusual position right now. It's in the 12th house. And it's conjuncting Mars, but more importantly, it's going to a new moon. Once he gets past September, he starts to come out of the woods. And I think it's going to be a really pushy, tough year for this guy.
Well, he said he was going to go to Washington to drain the swamp, and it looks like he's getting to the point now where the critters in the swamp are really getting ticked off at him.
Oh, yeah, he might lose a finger or two, but I think he still comes out of it.
Based on your charting, is President Trump going to win a second term?
It leans that way, believe it or not.
What does the U.S. and global economic picture look like for 2019 and going into the future?
Well, I'm glad you asked that one because it kind of relates to Trump in a way and what's going on globally. We have two really powerful cycles that are happening right now. One of them is called a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And just to kind of give you a little background on what these mean, World War I began in 1914 through 1918. That is almost precisely when we had the phase of a Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the beginning of last century. And these last about 35 to 38 years, give or take. It's not exact, but it's close. Then it came back again when World War II ended. There was a new phase, and that was, of course, when the Cold War started. And then we had Reagan come in, which was, again, right in the early 80s, was when the cycle renewed again. Well, here we are sitting at 2019, and it is now completing again. And this is why we're seeing absolute fascist radicalism everywhere. Both sides of the aisle, everyone. I mean, you can see it in the streets. You can see it on news. You can see it everywhere. Yeah. People are so egoic and opinionated on both sides of the aisle. And that's the nature of Saturn and Pluto conjunctions. It's where freedom meets fascism. I mean, and we think it's crazy right now, but let's roll the clock back. How would you like to be in Munich, Germany, right around 1940?
No, thanks.
You know, yeah, and especially if you were the wrong nationality, you were really in trouble. So this kind of stuff is certainly happened before. I mean, if you look back at history, I mean, our whole historical background is one war after another. I hope we don't see any issues, but I think this issue with Iran, Israel, Syria, the whole Middle East powder keg is, again, bubbling away. Let's pray and let's hope nothing happens, but it could. And it's likely to this year. If something like that boils over, that may be part of the reason Trump gets back in, because people tend to rally behind the incumbent when that happens.
Plus the fact that President Netanyahu wasn't he just charged with several counts of criminal counts? You know, I'm sure that's not going to go over.
Look at Trudeau in Canada. Well, this is the sign of the times. Right now, everybody's out to prosecute look at Michael Jackson. That just happened. I mean, this whole thing, you've got Oprah Winfrey behind it and all these different people. You got $100 million lawsuits. This is the sign of the times. People become really energized in their ego and their radical out view of this is my space, this is my, violation, and it gets nuts.
It certainly does, my friend, and I'm glad that you're here to help us try and understand what is going on in this wacky, weird, upset world of ours. So please stand by, Jeff. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. At Exonation, if you'd like to contact Jeff Harman for a one-on-one private reading, go to his website, www.jeffharman.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The X Chronicles newspaper is available for one and all with our compliments at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And watch for some great new shows that we are going to be putting up on the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV, Globecast, iLaunch, and all our TV networks around the world. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Welcome back, everyone. Jeff Harman is our special guest this hour, www.jeffharman.com. Jeff, before we went to the commercial break with the news, we were talking about some of the ways that you see the coming year and beyond using astrology. Climate change and earth changes, what do you see for that, or what does astrology tell you that we're in store for?
Well, this Saturn-Pluto conjunction is definitely, I think, going to stir some things up quite strongly. Also, I would say in a heliocentric zodiac, which is what astronomers look at, that's Earth-based is what astrologers look at, and helio is what a scientist would look at. They look at it from the sun's perspective. And Earth is actually, believe it or not, sweeping right through that conjunction in a heliocentric zodiac that Saturn and Pluto go through. Plain English, transformation, and it really could affect the weather as well. We're already seeing that. Look what just happened in Alabama.
Oh my gosh, that was
hurricanes we've been seeing off the charts. And I'm concerned we're going to see some pretty serious seismic activity coming into the fall, and particularly late fall, winter of this coming year. The other thing I need to mention is what really attracted me to some of the ancient documents were there are some old rabbinical documents that actually examined when the flood happened with Noah, Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
And these were positioned off the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, which, anyone who studies astronomy is going to say, well, that happens every 20 years. Well, they're right. It does. But it was in certain configurations that they were most concerned about. So every approximate 1,000 years, it's somewhere around 960, 980, and it's never exactly the same because the universe works in cycles, not years. We work in years. We have this huge, what they call a major conjunction or a great conjunction. And then every 240 years, we have what we call a sub or mutation conjunction. Well, interestingly enough, the last mutation conjunction we had approximately 240-something years ago was the ushering in of the Industrial Revolution. And it's pretty safe to say we went from pumping water out of the ground and horses and buggies to steam engines, mass production, and look at where we are now. It's colossal how far humanity has come in this last 240 years. Well, the winter solstice of 2020, there's an exact conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, which I believe is going to usher in a new era. And I think it's going to be a high-tech revolution unlike we have never seen before. I mean, Rob, you and I are children of the 50s.
Yeah.
We both remember how everyone said, oh, by 1985, we're going to be like the Jetsons flying around. Well, that never happened. A lot did happen, but not like that. I think now that's going to happen. In the next 10 or 15 years, we're going to be astounded at what we see.
Well, looking back just 10 years ago, how far technology has gone, who would have thought that the kids that go to elementary school and are going into high school have the capabilities at their fingertips on their iPhones and their iPads?
I track my kid all over the place. I just track his phone. I know wherever he's at. If I can do that, can you imagine what the military and the governments have?
Yeah. But once again, my attitude with the government and the military is hey, you know, nothing. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. But I understand where you're coming from, and I have to ask you.
Oh, it's actually good that they have
Sure,
it.
yeah, definitely. But I get so many people on this show who are paranoid. Like I try and figure out what the hell are you hiding from? What rock don't you want them to turn over? But that's for another show.
Yeah, right. If you got nothing to hide, there's no problems.
Exactly.
And actually, technology has improved our way of life so much. As long as we keep our consciousness in the right place and keep grounded, then it's good.
Speaking about keeping things grounded, how do you see the economy? Is it going to continue to grow, or are there surprises in store for us?
Well, that's a good question, because my call is I think we're going to see financial global reform very soon. And I'm not a financial expert, but I can tell you what the astrology seems to be lining up with the financial experts I do talk to. And that is, it doesn't take an IQ above room temperature to know that we are hundreds of trillions potentially in debt in the Western financial system. And, we know, of course, the U.S. is somewhere around, I think it just broke 22 trillion. And for anybody listening, this is an interesting math experiment. I was kind of blown away with this. If you take a calculator and you say there's 60 seconds per minute, multiply that times 60, that's the amount of seconds you get per hour. Multiply that times 24, you get what it is a day. Multiply that times 365, you get what it is a year. Right. At 80 years old, you're about 2.5 billion seconds old. Do you know how long a trillion seconds is, Rob? I couldn't believe this.
No idea.
I was astounded. I did this math 20 times because I couldn't believe my eyes. A trillion seconds is 11,700 and something odd years. Wow. Now, it's interesting how the politicians throw trillions around like it's $5, and if the financial system, from what I'm hearing from some pretty knowledgeable folks, is potentially trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt globally, they say somewhere between 80 and 100 trillion, the liquidity would never cover that. There's no bank that could ever cover that kind of collateral. So what I'm hearing is they're going to keep speaking of George Carlin, I really liked when he said, forget the politicians, you have owners. They own this place. And you know what? He wasn't too far off base. When you look at who these money printers are behind, of course, in the U.S., what we call the Fed, which isn't any more federal than Federal Express, but yet is surrounded by the infrastructure of the government, no one really knows who these guys are, nor do they ever get questioned into what the collateral is. It's an uncallable debt. So I've heard all kinds of scenarios that there's going to be a revaluation of currency this year where there may be something called SDRs, special drawing rights, partial gold back, and these drawing rights may be based on the natural resource capabilities of a country and GDP and all that. So there's a lot of scenarios I've heard bantered around, and that fits the astrology. I think we're at crisis point, and I think they are behind the scenes right now sticking their fingers in the dike to figure out how to come up with a new system to reevaluate it all. Interesting times, to say the least. To say the least. I'll never forget. You remember the Milwaukee Bucks, with Lou Alcindor and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he changed his name? I built a house in 1976. I was on a construction crew with this for this man who owned the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'll never forget this. He came up to me and he grabbed a shovel out of my hand. And I thought he was crazy. I thought, well, what's going on? Yeah. He slams the shovel in the ground. He goes, "This is the only thing that's worth anything." Now, this is 42 years ago. Or is it more than that? 43 years ago. He basically said, all this money they're printing, he said, they can't keep doing it. And this is a guy who pulls up in his Rolls Royce that played Bridge Over River Kwai when he hit the horn. This guy had millions of dollars. He was predicting the end of the world back then financially. That's 43 years ago. Guess what? They're still printing money, and a lot more than they ever did back then, because that was right after Nixon took us off the gold standard. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And who's going to stop them? So I think we're at crisis point, but I think because of this new era coming in, they can't let it crash. They've got to print their way out of it. You can't let society stop.
No, but you can't. You certainly can't. But when you keep printing money and you don't have the means to support the printing of the money, you're looking at a financial collapse.
That's what you would think.
Yeah.
But who's going to call the debt?
Well, for example, if China called the U.S. debt right now, the U.S. would go into bankruptcy.
Yes, it would. But they can't afford to. I've heard China's in worse shape than we are by far.
Oh, brother. That's scary.
That's, there's all kinds of rumors out there, but I have a lot of clients that do manufacturing in China, and I hear the horror stories. I mean, yeah, they're paying their poor people, 23 cents an hour and a pocket full of rice, and they get to sleep in a flea-bitten cage, It's hard to compete with that kind of labor rate.
It is. It truly is, but something has to be done, because the way we're going to go to hell in a handbasket. Never mind the handbasket, we just may be going to hell. You and I have to take our final break, so please stand by. And X Zone Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Jeff, if you'd like to get a hold of him and have him do your astrological chart, visit his website, www.jeffharman.com. That's www.jeffharman.com. And Jeff and I will be back on the other side of this final break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name's Rob McConnell. Once again, for all the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365, visit www.xzbn.net. Don't go away.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Explanation, our guest this hour is Jeff Harman. His website is jeffharman.com. First of all, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. What was the big hype about December the 21st, 2012?
That was the Mayan calendar. And I got to say, I'm on record with that on several radio stations. I think I was even on Coast to Coast, and I talked about how I didn't see anything going on with that at all. And nothing happened. Not a single thing. And people were buying food and flashlights and ammunition and tanks and holes in the ground, and nothing happened.
Yeah, it was a big zero. In fact, we were down in Mexico doing Mayan specials, and from the members of the Mayan tribes to the university professors, I think one of the Mayan princes said it best. Hey, you guys put calendars up on your wall every January the 1st. Well, This is what happened. Our calendar ran out, and we put a new one up. Okay.
That's what I said, too.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a single thing. To give you, and I'm not one at all to promote fear or fear porn and all that stuff. But I will give you this, that the Saturn-Pluto opposition was almost commensurate exactly with 9/11.
Really?
The banks crashed on the Saturn-Pluto square, and now we've got the conjunction. And not too far off, communism fell with that whole thing with Reagan back in the early 80s on the last cycle of this. So these always represent major political and geopolitical and social reform, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see our world change. And one of the interesting things about Trump is I think there's been several attempts on his life, and I've got a few clients who are pretty close to him. I don't know him personally, but I can tell you I do have some clients in very interesting places in the government. I can't say where or who. But the words I hear is that there is some real dissension going on right now. Call it drain the swamp, call it what you want. But I expect to see some off-the-charts trouble this year for a lot of folks in high places. And secondly, I think there's a reason the owners, quote-unquote, are doing the protection around Trump that they are. They want to build up the U.S. military. And I hear the whole North American military in general, they're really pouring some money. I mean, again, when you think about 1 trillion seconds is 11,700 years. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. And they just poured, God only knows if it's really 1.2 trillion or 1.1 into the military, and they're pouring more. That's a lot of money. And they're going to really take it up to a level. And I think this comes back to the financial debacle. When you look at what China wants to do in global domination, plus domination of the Pacific, the South Pacific, as well as Russia. They're trying to replace the Western banking system. They're actually coming up with solutions around the SWIFT transfer, wire transfer, all that. And there's a lot of movement to make the yuan become the de facto currency instead of the petrodollar. Will that happen? I think the owners will do whatever they can to keep that from happening.
What do you see past 2012?
Well, 2012.
I'm sorry, 2019. 2019. I'm sorry about that.
2019, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're heading into a new era. I really do. I think we're going to see teeth being grown. I think we're going to see research in genetics and computer technology, artificial intelligence, transportation that's going to blow our minds. It's been positioned to happen for a long time. But for some reason, these astrological cycles, or I call them astronomical cycles, are really what open the gate of consciousness and flow. And we certainly have the infrastructure in place. When you look at what's going on right now technologically in this world and the capabilities, they're just colossal. I think we're going to see flying cars. I mean, look at already. We see the Teslas driving themselves and many of the newer brands, the hybrids. They can park. They can avoid accidents. This kind of computer control is exactly what will pave the way to allow for flying vehicles. We're going to see police on drones pretty fast. And I think hydrogen is going to come in much stronger than people may believe in the future, because I've heard the government's been using cracked water, which is also known as hydrogen, in drones for a long, long time. And it's an amazing fuel.
Is it hard for someone to learn how to be an astrologer these days? Like, how long does it take? What do you need to know? What are their prerequisites?
Well, you know, I always like to consider myself not, quote unquote, just an astrologer. I use astrology more like I think the ancients did, as a tool to help find consciousness and direction in your life. I do not believe it predicts the future. I think it influences it. We predict the future by our actions. This is what attracted me again to many of the ancient philosophies, because especially in the East, when you look at things called karma and samsara, which is, again, your purposes, and dharma, which is, again, your direction, and all this kind of stuff, it fits very nicely when you translate it into the Western world. And that is, who the heck are we and why are we here? So astrology is just one branch to study. And astrology is not easy. You have to really – it's easier today because of the computers and the technology to study it. When I first started studying, it was all BC, before computers. We were literally casting charts by hand. But it's not easy, but it really comes down to the source material. I would encourage people interested to seek some very valuable texts that were put together in India as well as in the West, particularly, that came up out of Egypt, Greece, and the probably 11 and 1200s all the way up to the 1600s are astounding. They're amazing. Many people think of astrology as just your birth chart.
Yes.
Well, most folks born before the 1700s didn't even know what time they were born. There's people today that don't know what time they're born. So one of the most powerful tools was something called Interrogation Astrology. You just literally ask a question, and you cast a chart for the moment. And the Egyptians were famous for stuff like this. It would be called reading the heart, or the intention of the individual. And you can use it for just about anything. We use it for forensic stuff. Where's the lost kid? Where's the missing dog? My keys? Will I win the court case? You know, on and on. So those kinds of things are very, very interesting. And again, I was very skeptical, but very amazed at how accurate it is.
You know, the time is coming very shortly when you and I must say so long for tonight. But I do want to thank you again for joining us. What are your final thoughts that you'd like to share with the world right now when it comes to astrology, and how astrology can help not only in a person's personal life, but in a business as well?
Well, again, it's cycles. That's what's useful about astrology, is seeing your phases and your cycles. I always say life is a 3-act stage play. You know, from birth to the first Saturn return is Act 1. The first Saturn return to the second is Act 2. And then Act 3 ends up from there to when you exit the body. And to me, I think it gives you great viewpoints or an alternative viewpoint to what maybe psychology, psychiatry, or other modalities of, all of which I think is fine too. But it's another viewpoint at looking at the cycles in your life, which are completely unique for everyone. Location astrology is another one. It's absolutely amazing. I'm quite astounded at just how accurate it is. So it's a way to view your life through a different lens. And I think ancient astrology differs a lot from modern astrology in the way that it does that.
So do you think ancient astrology is more precise than modern technology, modern astrology?
Well, it uses different viewpoints. Again, there's a lot of stuff that's modern astrology that's very good. Some of it's been modern innovations. What I like is when I see something that's existed for 2,000 plus or more years, and it still works precisely today. One of the guys that I studied with, he's now long gone, he did astrology for some very powerful, prominent Eastern European bankers, some of which may very well be the ones behind the Fed. And he showed me stuff that I never saw before. And it's called Nadi Astrology. It's a branch of Vedic astrology. And I'm like, where did you get this? And he says, you're a Yavana. And I said, well, what's a Yavana? He said, you're not a Hindu-born astrologer, so we don't teach anybody this stuff. But he says, I'll teach you because you have a good yoga in your chart for spiritual work. And I said, okay, thank you. And it was really an eye-opener because it gives you, it's more looking at us as spiritual beings having this physical experience rather than, oh, you're a Pisces, and all this. They say your soul is created far above the firmaments. In fact, they say it's right beneath God. And any religious person will tell you God is far above the firmament. And that's what I love about ancient astrology is it's very divine, it's very spiritual, and it takes into account who are you. Not the astrology, but what's the astrology doing to you? It's a different viewpoint.
Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. And Exo Nation, if you would like to contact Jeff Harman for a one-on-one private consultation, once again, his website is www.jeffharman.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along?
The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, The 70-Year Cover-Up Exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.